Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a special online event today called The Enneagram of Higher Mind. Discover 9 sacred qualities of consciousness through the holy ideas. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm really thrilled to be with you here, learning, exploring, deepening with one of my favorite teachers. His name is Russ Hudson, and he's been at the forefront of work with the Enneagram and integrating the wisdom of different mystical systems and seeing the Enneagram really as a vehicle for liberating our highest and fullest expression rather than just personality typing. It's really a window to our soul and our expression in the world. And we're going to be going deeper into that today. So welcome, Russ.
Well, thank you, Stephen. It is always wonderful to be here, and I'm really looking forward to exploring this with you and the good folks here at the Shift Network.
Great. Well, we're super excited, not just by today, but also by the fact that you're going to do a brand new program with us, and we'll share a little bit about that towards the end of the hour. But Russ, let's talk a little bit about the Enneagram and the higher mind and your personal experience. You really came to the Enneagram out of a spiritual yearning rather than just understanding the personality. It was like really about a expression of your soul. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that backstory, and maybe some about how the Enneagram really has been a vehicle for our spiritual liberation first and foremost, and then it kind of got translated more into the personality domain.
Yeah, I sort of had the idea that the Enneagram typing system is like a diagnostic, but people forgot what it was diagnosing for. What was the purpose of this diagnosis? It wasn't just to file human beings in different categories, but to go along with what you were just saying. I learned the Enneagram originally as part of a school and a system of spiritual practice. I learned it through the Gurdjieff work, and I learned it as more of a mandala of principles of consciousness than as a map of types of people. So my primary interest was always about the development of the whole and real human being. And so later on, when I encountered, I should say, the map of the Enneagram in terms of these 9 types that we're all familiar with now, I understood it not just as a filing system for people, as I was saying, but more as a way of focusing on methods for people to open up their consciousness, and sort of a way of customizing what will be most powerful for us in our development of our psychology and our spiritual life.
So let's talk about the holy ideas. It's an intriguing concept and connects with these sort of different facets of our higher nature. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that and why that's an important dimension of the Enneagram to bring to the foreground now.
Yeah, I think holy ideas are definitely they're more explicitly spiritual than some of the Enneagram teachings, but as any of the people out there who have been listening to me before, reading my books and blogs and stuff, you'll know that that's primarily my focus and interest. But holy ideas are very explicit. They're a map of 9 perspectives from our mind liberated from its programming. You might say 9 enlightened perspectives. You might say 9 non-dual perspectives. They highlight different things about how reality appears to us when our mind is not programmed by our particular egoic stuff. When we're somewhat free of our personality patterns of our own type, for example, but other issues that we might have, we perceive reality in more spectacular, deeper, and broader ways than we ordinarily do. The holy ideas are kind of a way of generating an exploration and a conversation about these expanded perspectives.
Cool. So maybe give us a tour of those qualities and what we can learn or distill from each for our benefit.
Well, they're interesting because they're actually part of what in spiritual traditions called higher mind, or what in Tibetan Buddhism is sometimes called big mind. They're not part of our ordinary thinking processes. So you get it's not exactly we can grasp them with our ordinary mind, but we may recognize moments in our life where we've experienced these. Often we don't have any way of contextualizing when we've had these kind of experiences, but we remember, wow, that was kind of a cool way of being in that particular moment. So the holy idea is that we will be looking at all 9 of them, but the 8, for example, is holy truth. Now, I grant everybody out there, holy ideas, holy this, holy that. For some of us, that might stick in our craw a little bit. Don't get too hung up on that. This is just the terminology that comes out of the tradition. But they're just we're using the word holy to try to give us the sense that it's not part of our ordinary thinking. Holy truth, therefore, isn't my idea of truth. It's not what I think is the truth. Holy truth is more what happens to my mind when I'm impacted by presence. Presence has a certain immediacy, a nowness, a realness. And as that realness and immediacy impacts whatever is going on in my mind, it has a particular sensibility. And that sensibility, which might have a very simple beginning but can expand into very profound realizations, is called holy truth. One thing that holy truth does is it reveals how the universe is alive, in a sense, that the universe is not static. I'm not static. I'm not a dead thing. I'm not an object. And so we start to perceive not just that the universe is one, but that it's a living one. It's a dynamic, ever-shifting, living presence. And anything that we're perceiving in that direction is kind of in the direction of holy truth.
Beautiful. So how does this, maybe if you could go through the specific points and talk about what is that higher octave or higher aspect of each?
Well, that's for the 8. That holy truth is for point 8, and it's the resolution of the 8's personality. In a sense, experiencing life as alive and dynamic and real like that is what 8 is looking for on a personality level, but can't get there from inside the defensive structures of the personality. So we move on to 9, the higher octave here, so to speak, is called holy love. But we have to understand the love that's referred to here is not our ordinary sense of love, although our ordinary sense of love can be a portal into this deeper place. A lot of times when we're talking about love, we're thinking about attachment, infatuation, grasping, all sorts of things that are just normal parts of human life. But the love that we're pointing to here is more the love that's inherent in everything. It's more the classical, mystical, experiencing everything as light and love, and that which people have been experiencing since the dawn of time. But this particular experience, this particular way of experiencing what we're calling reality or the universe or even ourself is, again, an experience of unity. But here the unity has a quality to it, this loving, benevolent quality, and it's almost always associated with light too. So there's just, again, they're all things that we might recognize from other mystical literature, but the Enneagram is placing them within a context with each other in this and showing us how they relate to our more ordinary personality states.
Fascinating. So how do we begin to activate more of a relationship with the higher aspect of our type, the holy idea aspect of our type?
Well, that's pretty directly a work of presence. The Enneagram is, at least as I've learned it and understood it, a tool for the cultivation of presence. And so we learn about presence. We sort of get the feeling of when we're closer or further away from presence. But the Enneagram is also teaching us that presence requires the coming together of what we call our centers, or these different centers of intelligence, foci of intelligence. So as we're more embodied and in our breath, in our sensation, more landed in our body, that's our first support. You can't really be present if you're not here in your body, because your body's here. My body's here. So I can think about all sorts of things. I can imagine all sorts of things. But if I'm actually here in this moment, I will be here with this body, with this breath. So that's one element. Second is the heart plays a very important role in these. Although the holy ideas are really about the higher mind, they all require the participation of the heart in a very specific way. So as the heart comes in with sensitivity, intelligence, kindness, a kind of holding of the experience, the mind can simmer down. It doesn't then have the job of trying to manage all of my experience, defend me against this, that, and the other thing. As the mind quiets down, this deeper mind comes forward. And this deeper mind, or what's sometimes called higher mind, as I was saying, has these other characteristics. Partly what I will be wanting people to understand too is this isn't about just having trippy, states of consciousness. How do we integrate that? How do I live with these realizations? How do I take in the implications of what I see? What does it mean when I get up in the morning that I really experience that everything had inherently love in it and light in it and so forth? So there's a lot of Enneagram work around the integration of our ordinary life, our ordinary mind, our ordinary concerns, and how they're affected or impacted by these profound realizations.
So, one way to just explore a little further is like to be able to see what are the lower mind patterns that we might be trapped in, and sort of how does the higher mind illuminate that? And I'd love for you to explore that a little more with us.
Okay. Well, if we went to the next point, as point one, each type has a way that their ordinary mind operates, and that's called our fixation. Fixation has to do with our ordinary mind. Now, the fixations aren't wrong. They're not bad. They're not crazy. In fact, they're things that almost all human beings do almost all the time. The work is really big about becoming aware with what I usually take to be the bottom line, what I'm usually thinking is reality. And each fixation is shared by all 9 types, but it's kind of a specialty of a particular type. So, for example, point 9, the fixation has more to do with sort of daydreaming and being in my own little world and kind of talking to myself and imagining stuff in my head. Everybody does that, but it's kind of a specialty of 9. The specialty of 1 is having positions, having opinions, having a point of view about pretty much everything. And when that gets amped up more, it becomes our judgments about ourselves or others. But most of that just starts because we have pre-established views and points of view about everything. Now, again, if we don't take this on as that's something bad or wrong, which would then be another point of view, but just notice that we're doing it, we start to see the phenomena of that mental activity. But we also start to notice the emotional undercurrents. We start to feel under that activity kind of doubt, fear, sadness, various emotions that activity is protecting us from. We start to understand that it's defensive. It's trying to take care of me. It's trying to take care of my heart. By having a position about everything, it gives my vulnerable self some feeling of protection. But it's in relation to a doubt that anything is here that's going to look after me, make sense, take care of anything. It's like the wise part of reality has vacated. So I have to make sure I know what's going on and take care of business. So once we start to open to this feeling and this sense of kind of disappointment about reality, it opens us to the holy idea of 1, which is called holy perfection. Now, sometimes people talk about holy perfection as if it means everything is great just the way it is. I don't agree with that. That's just another point of view. It's a way of looking at things, but it's not. The holy idea is always a liberation from a stuck or particular view about reality. It's hard for our regular mind to understand that. Let's just say the holy perfection is more a felt sense, a wordless recognition that in this moment, right now, there's a kind of sense to things. There's an intelligence to things that I can plug into, I can participate in, I can be part of the expression of or not, but that I don't need to be endlessly taking these positions about everything for something intelligent to occur. So the holy ideas come from a deeper place. As I said, this deeper quiet mind, a deeper silent place, but also they're always participating in the heart in a particular way. But we tend to come to them by seeing how we're stuck in the fixated pattern. That's, again, where the specifics of the Enneagram become very relevant and useful.
That's where it sounds like it's really not about transcending those patterns, but like actually deepening through them, and that kind of welcomes in the deeper qualities that that you say, that like the heart-centered qualities, rather than kind of like trying to like, hey, I'm just going to go into this lofty new idea.
That's exactly right, Stephen. This is not, I mean, one of the popular and rising teachings in the world right now is about spiritual bypass. Even when these states are real, if we don't integrate them, they just become an exit. They become a way of getting out of our life, not dealing with our problems, not dealing with our emotions. But in my experience, the realization of these more refined states of consciousness, even when real, do not necessarily save us from the work of dealing with our emotions, our issues, our traumas, all of that. But when we have these states, when we really are connected with this finer quality of presence and intelligence that is available to us, it expedites the healing and the working through of our issues. So the Enneagram is pointing to always an integrative, total human encounter with both the part of us that is connected to the divine and the part of us that is connected to nature and everything in between. We're not trying to leave one and live in the other. One of my teachers used to say that we always run into people who have negated their humanity, their natural life, to just try to stay divine all the time. But such people end up getting stuck in a certain way. And there are other people who've sort of canceled out their divine nature and they just live completely through their instincts and their gratifications, and they've lost the sort of angel in them. But the Enneagram work, and I think the Enneagram work as part of the core of the Western mystical spiritual tradition, is always about the union of our humanity and our divine nature. And the holy ideas are bringing in some of that explicit divine nature to help illuminate some of the muddles we get into in the human nature part.
That's beautiful. It's almost like the higher qualities are helping to just soften all of the attachment patterns of the quote lower or fixation points. It's almost like it's like a dissolving agent or something.
Yeah, that's a really beautifully put. I think the man who sort of put the whole Enneagram together in terms of the types was Oscar Ichazo, and he originally called the holy ideas also psychocatalyzers. And he meant exactly that. He meant that the contemplation of these particular perspectives would catalyze the working through of our psychological issues, our particular fixated patterns. So, the Enneagram is always both spiritual and psychological. It's always both looking at the mystical and the pragmatic, neurological human stuff. But that's, I think, what makes it exciting and interesting.
Fascinating. Well, we talked about having you lead a practice to integrate the ordinary mind and higher mind, heart and body today, so really give people a taste of this. So is this a good time to do that practice?
Sure. So wherever you may be sitting, you may be standing, you may be doing yoga. Wherever you are, come to your breath. And that doesn't mean you need to think about it, just notice it. Notice, hey, I'm breathing. I'm breathing right now. What does that feel like? Can I be with the cycle and rhythm of my breath for just a moment? Breath is marvelous because it's so fundamental to life, but so close to our kinesthetic awareness. Yeah, to just let myself land in my breath a little bit helps to soothe whatever may be happening in my heart. It also helps to quiet the momentum of my thoughts. As I'm sensing this breath, I may start to notice sensing more of my whole body. I may actually feel my body resting on the chair, the couch, the cushion, wherever I might be sitting or standing. Might feel the air on my skin. All of this has a way of giving me some wiggle room, disengaging from what I'm usually attached to, identified with. I need some space to work in. And this is how I create that space, or co-create it, really. As I'm doing that, I may notice that my heart feels like the waves of the heart become longer. The waves of feeling become longer. There's a smoother quality. And even if there are sharp places that I encounter, more intense feelings that might be hanging around, this smoothness and this breath and this groundedness rise up to meet whatever is here. And I start to be able to notice there are forces at work here beyond my little inner manager. So my little inner manager, I can kiss on the forehead and thank and let that part of me relax a little bit too. There can be a beautiful relief in that. And as I do that, the mind starts to peel back like the layers of an onion. At first, maybe there was a lot of chitter chatter. That can yield to a more simple awareness and lucidity. I can think more clearly. I can notice things with more fineness and perception. And then if I'm in this grounded, relaxed, breathing, smooth, kind place, mind quieting down a bit, I can bring my attention a little bit to the center of my head, between the eyebrows, a little above and a little in. And I may notice a slight sensation there. I may notice a quality. Maybe I perceive light. Maybe I perceive depth. Whatever's there. Just notice and be with the quality of experience there in the center of my head. And this is where we will begin to perceive the holy ideas from. Once there's a deeper connection with this part of me, once I've established myself more at this level of refined awareness, my perceptions of what I am and what the world is will start to shift. So if I take a little peek at where I'm sitting, maintaining this depth of breath and sensation, this supple heart, this quiet in my mind, and this sense of concentration in my head. What do I notice about the space around me? Is it different in any way from my usual perceptions? It may include my usual perceptions, but perhaps there's some other ways of seeing things that are also present. And as I notice whatever I'm noticing about that, how does that in turn affect my heart? How does that affect my ability to relax and breathe and be here? As I see there's less and less I need to grasp or hold on to, then it's like an invitation for reality to show me its mysteries. And as we will go through each of these 9 points, we might highlight different perceptions that open up as we find this finer, more exquisite quality of attention, which is really what our consciousness is made of. Thank you.
Beautiful. There's such a depth of presence in your voice, and it's really evident from doing this kind of work. And there's a kind of a compassionate embrace of the whole that really emanates from you. And I really received that, and I'm sure others really felt that as well.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah. And I think that really does speak to your approach to the Enneagram. It is about a widening of our heart and embracing of more of the fullness of who we are, rather than kind of limiting ourselves to a particular box. But it's like, can I integrate that? Can I embrace that? Can I embrace and see more?
Yeah, I mean, if you think of it, the type isn't the destination. Finding your type is sort of like the doorway to the palace. Yeah, but once you find the doorway, you're supposed to go into the palace, which is this exploration of your soul, of your consciousness. And so much of what happens is the doorway is so darn interesting that we end up, having long conversations and meetings at the doorway, but we don't go into the palace. There are whole Enneagram websites and things where people are just endlessly chatting at the interesting doorway. But my invitation, and the invitation that came to me from my teachers, was to go to find that doorway and then go through it to this more direct experiential exploration of what it is to be a true human being.
I love that metaphor. That really illuminates so much. Can you share a little bit more about? So it seems like part of what we have to overcome is this fascination with the doorway, and get there. Are there specific ways that different types tend to get differently fascinated with their doorway? That it might be they have to let go and really enter into the palace.
I don't know if there's different ways. There's different things we get stuck in. The fixations in some sense are that, what are we stuck in? If I mentioned the one, if I let go of all my opinions and views and positions, then who am I? What am I? Holy moly, I don't know. If I'm a 9 and I come out of my own little world where I hang out, and who or what am I? And so each fixation is a kind of an area of human concern that we get stuck in. And so the mechanism of that is what is traditionally called identification, that we get. It's not, but just to reel this back, the issue is not that I have an ego. The issue is that I take the ego to be what I am, and then I forget what I am. So the practices behind the Enneagram were traditionally called self-remembering, because it's remembering what I am beyond these programmed patterns that human beings have. So if we quit the idea that we need to get rid of the ego or destroy the ego, or whatever kind of project we've got there, and I kind of think all of those come from the ego, because our spirit, our essence, doesn't want to get rid of anything. It doesn't have that view. I think that we discover, when we start to stand in this deeper place in ourselves and then can see the patterns for what they are, we start to really understand what the Enneagram is for and why the people who developed this teaching did it the way they did it. If we're inside the patterns and identified with them, then we can't really see that. We just are looking at what I resonate with, what descriptions I agree with. And then we can even nowadays pick and choose. There's so many different Enneagram teachers and teachings out there. I'll just find the ones that agree with how I like to see myself. That was not the point of this. I understand that that's compelling and interesting. And when you're really looking to understand yourself, we all have to start somewhere. And of course, we're going to start looking at that kind of stuff. My hope is that people are really sincere about this. We'll see, okay, from here, I can only see so much. And I can't really sort out what this is about. I don't really understand all the mechanisms of it. When we get together and we're working with each other with presence in groups, when we're working with teachers and teachings, there's a chance that we get this more 3D, HD view of what's going on, and we start to understand what this map is serving and how it can help me move to a more ongoing and direct realization of what I am as a human being, which is so much more than these patterns. But it's also not just a narcissistically appealing description of myself. So, we can't help it. We're all beat up by life, and we've been hurt and wounded and disappointed. So anything we hear that seems to offer to help us get ourselves is going to be embraced. But I just really hope that the wonderful people out there who are interested in this will go past that doorway and start to see that the people who created this really were trying to make a runway into that temple.
I love, so beautifully shared. And yeah, you really help us see things so much more compassionately. And you were pointing to something around the group work as well that I think is important, and maybe we haven't presence quite as much, is that this isn't just about seeing ourselves and our fixations more compassionately, but it's like we start to do that with all the other types. That opens up a whole different way of relating to all the different fixation points in the world. And so the group practice in a way is just as important as the self-understanding.
Oh, absolutely. We start to see other people with fresh eyes. We're actually moved by them. We perceive these people that seem on the surface so altogether cool or put together, that they have their suffering and difficulties too. And our ego cannot really be compassionate and loving in the way we all feel we would like to be. It does a lot of cool stuff, but that's not part of its toolbox. Ego cannot be the bringer of love and kindness and the things that the great spiritual masters who walk this earth have taught us about. One way that the holy ideas do come in here is that they bring an entirely other level of understanding. Now, when I go to spiritual stuff, gatherings, or I'm reading spiritual books, I'm always being given this advice or suggestion: just open my heart. Just open your heart, Russ. Go for it. And just be kind and be loving everywhere. Why can't we just love? Let's just love everybody. Well, that all sounds good. I mean, who wouldn't agree with that? But the part of us that we're looking to do that can't. However, for most people, when the heart and mind come together, the first thing we notice is we're interested. We're actually interested in something. And the second thing is it brings caring. It brings kindness. As soon as I understand that my mom or my sister or my brother-in-law or my boss, I start to understand something about their personality and their journey, not just in an analytic way, but from this more presence-based way, I can't help but feel more compassion for them. When I understand myself more accurately and I see why I do the things I do and the difficulties that I'm struggling with, there's no way I can get away with being as mean to myself as I sometimes have been. So there's a gorgeous way that understanding is the opening of compassion. And if I really understand something, it tends to bring kindness and more love. And if I really have compassion and love, there's always some deeper level of understanding involved. So I just don't see how we're going to get anywhere on the spiritual journey if we're not really understanding how these different elements work together in us. There is a very important place for that.
So in a way, it seems like what you're saying is that if we're really perceiving something from our higher mind and not just our egoic mind, it has to lead to a deepening of compassion and love. It's not like that's intrinsic to higher mind.
Yes. And it's one way it's not spiritual bypass. Sometimes people can have some kind of experience, but then they latch on, they attach to the memory of it, and then it becomes some sort of detachment. It becomes some sort of distancing from my humanity, from people, from life. I'm beyond all you guys. But that just shows me that probably the person had some kind of amazing experience, but that's not what's happening now, and they're clinging to the memory of it. It's not what's in their experience right now. If it's what's in my experience right now, whenever it's authentic, there is more kindness. There is more compassion. There is more heart sensitivity toward everything. One thing about the deeper mind, it opens a deeper heart, and a deeper heart is not playing favorites. Deeper heart is holding of all experience, and it works out through the particulars of our lives and the relationships in our lives, that's for sure. But the sense of it is more generously available to all and everything.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, do you want to, is there anything that is it worthwhile to go a little bit more into some of the types that we haven't touched upon and just see what's the holy idea connection to each?
Sure. We could certainly do that. I mean, I think just a little sense of the interface of each one could be useful. Because to really explain the holy ideas is, I think people are probably starting to notice, is not a quick and easy thing. It's not a bullet point. It's to get the holy ideas. Even if I were to describe them, it's more something we feel our way into. But just to carry on, the fixation is more to do with how whenever we're with people, we have some idea of what's supposed to be happening in the relationship, who we are, who the other person is, who's doing what for who, and what the agenda is. Now, we don't mean to do that. It's not a conscious thing, but there it is. And once you start to notice it, you start to see it's all over the place. Everybody does that. Twos, that's the specialty and what most gets them caught up. And so that fixation, I don't even know what to call it. Ichazo called it flattery. I called it relational thinking. I've called it ingratiation, but it doesn't really matter what you call it as long as you recognize the activity. When we can relax that, the holy idea arises of holy freedom, which is the freedom to be here with whoever I'm with in each moment without it being controlled by some historic need or programming. Like every relationship gets to be the magic that it is in that moment. I get to be what I am in the moment without being run by all these agendas I didn't even know I had. So that's an idea of the interface there. The three has, gee whiz, some of them have more than one holy idea, so we don't have enough time to go into all of that right now. But basically, the three is the fixation is called deceit, from my point of view. Oscar Chazo called it vanity, but I think that's a better name for the passion. And our dear departed Claudia Naranjo agreed with me on that. Deceit, though, doesn't mean fibbing or tricking people. It means that I really believe that the ego and what the ego wants and is going after is what's important and is me. So that's everybody. We all think that. It's just a bigger deal for people who are threes. So then I put my energy and time into what makes the ego seem to develop or improve or enhances the ego in some way. And I don't necessarily put the time into developing my being and developing my soul. I think most of us can relate to that. The holy idea here is, well, there's holy harmony, which has to do with functioning, which has to do with that kind of blissful being in the zone when you're functioning and you're not trying to get credit for it, or you're not evaluating how you're doing. You're just totally into doing what you're doing, and you're in that flow, and everything is that flow, and you look around and the whole universe is just flowing and you're part of it. That's holy harmony. Holy hope is as we relax that need to try to be a particular person, we start to notice what we are. And as we notice what we are, and that what we are is what's actually doing stuff, not our self-concepts, not our ego, that it's coming from a much deeper and, in a sense, higher place, we become, in that moment, the hope. I become the hope of the development of the world. Here, it doesn't mean hoping something will be better later on. It's the hope right now. The four, the fixation is it was called melancholy by Chazo. I have used the term fantasizing because it's thinking about things that keep me in certain moods. As a four, I find myself through certain emotions, certain states, certain moods. And so my thinking tends to be whatever will get me back to the moods that I'm identified with. So I think about things that keep me feeling familiar to myself. And a lot of times those have, as to bring in that word Chazo used, there's a melancholic kind of quality to it. The sense of longing and bittersweetness and things like that. But the holy idea of the four is called origin. And that one's pretty far out. And so it'll take some time to unpack it. Origin is the ultimate experience of intimacy, where it's not merely that there's no walls between us, there's no distance between us. Like everything is right here in this living, brilliant moment. Everything from all time, distance, place, it's all kind of comes right together in this radical fusion of intimacy, depth, beauty. It's a rapturous feeling that brings to the heart. Even as it kind of blows out of the water any of my stories about myself and things being missing and so forth. But all of these, again, are the holy ideas are almost, people have made religions around the experience of these different holy ideas because they're very profound states of that humans seem to be able to access, at least from time to time. The five, the fixation is, well, Chazo called it trying to remember his term for it. It was stinginess. And it's not my favorite. I like to use the term retention, because what fives are doing, which everybody does, is we associate learning with memorizing. So the five for whom learning and understanding things is central, I'm always trying to retain everything. I'm retaining memories, I'm retaining experiences, I'm retaining stuff I've read, I'm retaining music I've heard, I'm trying to hold on to everything in my mind and retaining. That's the fixation. The holy idea, there's a couple of them, but one of them, the one that's relevant here first, is called holy omniscience. Omniscience is direct knowing. It doesn't mean I know everything in the universe. It doesn't mean I know the secret passcode of some kind of government installation in China or something. It means that knowing that is necessary for my soul's journey in the here and now is always available. And this direct knowing is of another category than grasping and trying to hold on to information. Direct knowing can synthesize and work with information I've learned, but it's altogether a different thing. And there's also a kind of penetrating quality to it, because this omniscience doesn't come to some final conclusion. It sees through what I've already believed or thought and keeps revealing deeper landscapes of truth and reality.
Yeah, I think, well, you're going deeper into each of these than I thought. So I think we're going to run out of time to do all of them.
Oh, dear.
But I know that what's really awesome is, like, I feel like each is like this little, you're kind of unwrapping this whole worldview, and it's like, and then opening up to its higher octave. It's like this, it's like a flower blossoming into a bloom. It's really quite beautiful. And yeah, so I just love the way you approach life. There's such a deep heart resonance and a deep respect for people's unfolding and compassion for that I feel like is really so evident in how you see things. So thank you for that, Russ. And I think that now would be a good time to talk about your upcoming program, which we're super excited about. I mean, we've developed this great global community of Enneagram fans and practitioners and students, and Russ has really been at the forefront of evolving our understanding of how to apply this powerful tool and map to really evolving ourselves and our spiritual awakening. So we're really excited that Russ has agreed to partner with us on a brand new program. It is called the Enneagram of Higher Mind, and you can find it at highermindenneagram.com, highermindenneagram.com. It's a brand new program, and it's 8 weeks long, and there's no prerequisites, although some basic familiarity with the Enneagram is helpful since it doesn't go into all the different details. So it builds upon some knowledge of the Enneagram. But it is a chance to experience the liberating power of the higher mind in the Enneagram, of the holy ideas, of being able to understand how to really see our own liberation from fixations and to expansion into a wider identity through this tool. So, Russ, I'd love for you to share in your own words what you're excited to take people through in this 8-week journey, and then give us a tour of the modules.
Yeah, well, I think that what excites me about it is, I've done a lot of work on the virtues and the heart. And the heart is always a popular thing to talk about. People love to learn about their heart, and it makes us feel good. But gee whiz, we live in a time, I think, where higher mind is going to be very important. And there just isn't the same kind of understanding of how higher mind might work with our lived lives. And as I was saying earlier, the integration of higher mind into how we live is really what I think the Enneagram can be helpful with. And where it is an integration and not some kind of spiritual bypass. But I think if we're going to be successfully dealing with some of the big challenges facing our culture, our world at this time, we're going to need access to this source of creativity and wisdom and discernment. We aren't going to get there just by feeling something about it. Our heart and mind need to work together through empowered bodies to move toward the world that I think we want to live in. So I think the work on higher mind is very timely right now. I'm really interested to take people through the whole thing. With the first module is going to be basically an overview of what the holy ideas are, how they sit in the Enneagram schematic, how they work with other kind of traditions, a little bit of how to recognize what we're talking about here. And then we'll be going in the subsequent modules through each of the clusters of holy ideas. As I've done in other courses, I'm going to start with point 8. So the second module will be about point 8 and point 9, looking more at how the holy ideas restore our sense of unity with reality, which all kind of mystical non-dual states do, but we look at the specific mechanics of that. How does that happen? What's it actually like? In the third module, we'll look at points 1 and 2, and there we look at how we get caught up in our orientation to things and wanting to keep our orientation to things in a certain way, and that really interferes with our wisdom, our ability to be wise about our relationships, wise about our actions, wise about what we choose to do with our time and energy, sort of open up to that wisdom place in us. The fourth module will be about points 3 and 4. This is very interesting. This is how the non-dual perspective of the holy ideas transforms our sense of ourselves. It's not just I'm the static same thing here and I just perceive the world differently. As my perception of reality changes, my perception of what I am, the one who's perceiving this, shifts. In a real sense, enlightenment is a shift of the sense of the perceiver. Who is having the experience? What is having the experience? What is doing this right now? And so it's the opening up of the sense of self and identity. And that will be in that particular fourth module. The fifth module looks at points 5 and 6. And here we're looking at how higher mind is about knowing and learning and understanding, and how we come to new understanding and learning. And 5 and 6 teach us different things about that, both how to perceive deeper truths about what reality is, but also learning how to have a better human life, how to make wise decisions, how to know how to navigate the world that we find ourselves in, how we actually can feel like we're simultaneously this vast consciousness and we're this particular human being that's navigating this amazing, complex world that we arise in. And then the next session will be the sixth session, is about point 7. And here we'll look at how higher mind is inherently positive, is inherently kind, is going to help us work through the difficulties, is a kind of positivity that is unstoppable. And it's about how, as we start to see that more and more, we trust the process. We trust that there's some bigger intelligence that's helping us out here and helping us work through everything. There may be some extra time in that session to talk about other questions that may have come up over the course of the previous modules too. Each one of the modules, I usually teach something, I give an exercise or two, and then we have some Q&A time, which is often a very rich part of the class. Then we have the 7th module, which is, if I recall, about how this work we're looking at, the particular work of holy ideas, the work of higher mind, the work of non-dual consciousness, works with the other elements of the Enneagram, how it works with the heart work, how it works with the instinct work, how this can help with the integration of our total humanity. And you start to eventually get a sense of how the Enneagram works as this beautiful gestalt. All these different elements are part of something that's working simultaneously together for our development and liberation. And then the last session, we're going to look at customizing from everything we've learned to sort of put together our own program of how we're going to go forward from this class and use the material we've learned to really open up some new possibilities in our life. And in that last module, we'll also have an extra period of time for any outlying and remaining questions and comments that may be floating around out there. And usually there are at the end of a course. I think it's going to go by amazingly, and I'm really excited about it. I think this is going to be a really fun class.
Yeah. Well, Russ, we're super grateful you've partnered with us on this. It sounds just fantastic. And I know you just create such a welcoming, open spirit of inquiry and growth and evolution. And it's just, there's a transmission of a way of seeing the world that I think is so valuable for all of us, just heart-centered, wise, and embracing. And I'm really compassionate about this human adventure that we're on. So you can see the whole course laid out with Russ at highermindenneagram.com, highermindenneagram.com. You get not only the 8 90-minute class sessions with Russ, you also get live Q&A time. You get recordings of every session, as well as full word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight over time. You also get a Facebook learning community, which deepens the whole dialogue and experience, as well as exercises and things you can do at home for inquiry and learning. There's also a number of great bonuses on the page at highermindenneagram.com. There's an audio meditation from Russ and Jessica Dibb, who will often co-teach together. It's the 9 Types meditation. It's an audio meditation. There's also a dialogue with Russ and Cynthia Bourgeot, one of the foremost teachers around Christian mysticism. This is called The Original Ideas Behind the Enneagram. And also a bonus from Jessica just by herself called Living from a Boundless Perspective, an experiential journey through the holy ideas of points 8, 9, 1, and 2. And there's a companion audio that's for 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So really diving into each of the holy ideas. Russ, you want to say why you and Jessica collaborate so well together and some of the bonuses that you're going to feature her?
Well, Jessica and I have been working together for many years, and I think we were drawn together partially because of our shared passion of, helping people find ways to get unstuck. And Jessica's been just a fearless person in terms of her willingness to throw herself into whatever she needed to learn to do that. But I also think it's interesting because we come from kind of different backgrounds. My background is more in this Gurdjieff work, more Western Judeo-Christian mysticism, things like that. I'm influenced by this Western canon of spirituality and the practices behind the Enneagram. Jessica she worked more from the Indian traditions, but also has this huge background in breath work. She's one of the most amazing breath work facilitators in the world. And so her whole kind of experiential kinesthetic approach to all this material brings a really important ingredient to what we're doing and what we're exploring.
Beautiful. Well, we're really grateful that you two collaborate so powerfully together on freeing people from their fixations. So again, you can see this whole program laid out in detail at highermindenneagram.com, highermindenneagram.com. And there's a special bonus, which is available only today until midnight. We like to do this as a way, give you a little extra incentive to go to the page at Higher Mind Enneagram and tune in and make your decision now. And if you want to have this new world of Higher Mind Enneagram opened up to you, you get an extra bonus when you do so today. And this is a dialogue between Russ and David Daniels, another very prominent expert on the Enneagram, who is no longer with us. So this is called What Creates Transformation, the Pragmatics of Change. And Russ, would you like to share a little bit about that special bonus between you and David?
Sure. David was a good friend of mine and brilliant man. He was part of Stanford University Medical School. He was a psychiatrist, very extraordinary, brilliant man, very kind man. And we came from these two dominant Enneagram schools that weren't really working together. But through our friendship, he and I really began to enjoy the cross-pollination and the exploration. And as I was saying with Jessica, just really wanting to find things that helped people. What was it about all that we've learned that really did open up things for people. So David and I used to have amazing conversations together. I miss him a lot, and gee whiz, I might want to listen to that again myself. So yeah, he was really one of the important voices of this whole evolving Enneagram school and community. And again, just coming from different backgrounds made it so much more fun.
Yeah, I love that the way that these different schools came together through this work, and that's a great extra reason to sign up today. So again, you can find all the details and registration at highermindenneagram.com. We've kept it very accessible. It's just 3 payments of $109, or you can save 10% when you pay in full with $297. So the course is going to begin October 16th and run on Wednesdays at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, and is really going to be a terrific journey and community that gets created and really just steeped in this heart-centered wisdom that opens our higher capacities in a beautiful way. So again, I encourage you to go to the page at highermindenneagram.com, tune in, and if you feel called to go further, then you have the extra incentive of the dialogue between Russ and David Daniels when you sign up today, and that's on what creates transformation, the pragmatics of change. So Russ, a beautiful hour together. Thank you for this time and this intimate reflection on the higher mind and of Enneagram and holy ideas, and just really how to live in a very heart-centered, compassionate way. So thank you for this time. So anything that still remains for you to speak to folks who are considering taking this next step with you and on the Enneagram of higher mind?
Well, just as I was saying earlier, I think it's very timely. It's a good time to be looking at these things. It's a good time for us to be learning together how to access deeper sources of wisdom. I sure hope that in the process of working on this course with everyone, that I'm going to learn some new stuff about this too. I always feel like that's how I get my fun. So I expect new understandings and revelations for me as well. But I also think that this is also an important time for some of us who maybe have learned something about the Enneagram to be the big brothers and sisters for people, the many, many, many people that are learning about the Enneagram on many different facets and walks of life and from many different sources, so that as they are ready to go from that doorway into the palace, they have some good people who can get them started and guide them. So I think us having this kind of conversation about this deeper work that the Enneagram is actually about can be of service to a lot of other people in this rapidly growing community. So I hope that will be part of what comes out of this.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for this heart offering today, and thank you for the offering of the Enneagram of higher mind and all the blessings that will bring to those who choose to join you for that journey. So thank you all. Thank you, Russ. Many blessings.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Shift, for making this possible again. Thank you.
Great. And the URL one last time is highermindenneagram.com to get signed up for Russ's next program.